very good evening to all of you. My name is Suma Nair. I lead products for the vocational vertical of TCS Ion. On behalf of TCS Ion, a warm welcome to all of you for today's session. Before we start the session, a quick introduction of TCS Ion Direct and the topic, and definitely about our speaker today. TCS Ion Direct strives to help students provides them with learning content that allows them to interact, collaborate, and grow. As part of our initiative, we organize various knowledge sharing sessions with industry experts on current topics in the area of education, skills, and careers. For today's topic is on growth of vocational education in India. Vocational education and skill development are significant to improve the productivity and efficiency of workers and hence leading to the expansion of national development. Skill development, as you know, has taken over a lead over the academic qualifications in the current employment scenarios. Gone are the days when employers were seeking academic certificates and qualifications alone. The shift is now focused more towards competencies and performance of skills on specific job-ready skills and competencies. It has showed that there is a consensus among all about the importance of skill developments for job and how we bridge the gap between academia and industry. That is the topic we deliberate on. With us to deliberate on this topic today, we have Mr. Mukesh Sharma, Chief Executive Officer of Center of Research and Industrial Staff Performance, in short, CRISP. He comes with a very rich experience of 34 years spread across various organizations that is focused on skill and competency development. He has worked with different kind of organizations, including international development agencies like GIS of Germany and CEDA of Canada. He was the UNDP Program Coordinator of Employment Generation Program for Rural and Semi-Urban Youth. He had been regularly working with German Technical Cooperation GTZ on short assignments. He has also coordinated on ILO-supported Indus Child Labor Project on providing vocational skills to child labor. He has been the member of state-level committee for World Bank assisted program aimed at improving the quality of technical education. He is also the member of governing bodies, councils of few industry associations, technical institutions, and International Vocational Education and Training Association, USA. He is also chaired the Skill Development Committee of CII Madhya Pradesh Zone and has managed and administered the setup of skill development centers in Andhra Pradesh, Gujarat, and Karnataka. He has set up the training center of CRISP in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and he has been presenting papers at IVETA conferences internationally. He is also a recipient of Commonwealth Awards and represented India with another 10 members from India in Commonwealth countries, Emerging Leaders Study Tour in Australia and New Zealand during the year of 2003. It is my pleasure and honor to welcome and introduce you, Mr. Mukesh Sharma, for today's session. Before we start the session, a short note to all our viewers here. We want the session to be very interactive and as interactive as possible. So please post your questions on the chat window provided on this platform, and we will be taking up these questions as and on during the course of our discussion today. So a warm welcome, sir. Let me start with the first question.
Thank you. Thank you.
In this segment.
And I also greet all the participants. Those are part of this webinar.
Thank you. What are some of the most important and most popular vocational fields that is currently in trend in India, sir? We can start with that question first.
Yeah, Suma, if we see in India, the situation is there are major three sectors. One is the industrial sector, which covers manufacturing and the rest of the things. It is about 26%, means it provides 26% contribution to the GDP of India. Second sector, if we see, it is basically the largest sector is the service sector, which is almost 54% of the GDP, Indian GDP. So if we see from this angle, and the third sector, definitely the rest 20% is mainly from the agriculture and agriculture related activities. Now, if we see all these things, the very first thing which come to our mind, the biggest employer would be the service sector for anyone in India. And the second employer would be the industrial sector, the manufacturing hub. Manufacturing hub is hardly 15%. So, but these are the two major sectors which need the skilled manpower. Now, if I take all these sectors in general, there are many sectors, the engineering sector, non-engineering sectors, the banking, financials, insurance, there are many things now. But the major, I would say about 13 to 14 sectors are the major sectors which need a lot of skilled manpower, like the telecommunication, photography, foreign languages, information technology, of course, is one of the biggest sector in this. Fashion designing, garment stitching, beauty courses, of course, is another sector which has grown up like anything in India in recent few years. Then the catering is another sector which requires a lot of people. Then there is advertisement, marketing, public relations, banking, finance, disaster management, and the electrical, electronics, plumbing. All these are the other sectors which need a lot of manpower, skilled manpower. Now, if we see the earlier also in our ITIs and other places, we were having all the courses like plumbing, electrician, miller, fitter, all those kind of things. But with the change in technology, now the major problem is this: we need a different skill set. The earlier skill set is no more needed in the market. तो हमारी प्रॉब्लम अब ये हो गई है कि if we are looking for the milling and turning के लिए हम बात करते हैं, so we need CNC operators now. We don't need the conventional machine operators. Of course, it is required, but we need more CNC machine operators now. Similarly, if we are talking about the drafting, earlier this used to be a mechanical kind of system. The drafting scale के साथ में काम करते थे. Now everything is being done on AutoCAD. So it means we need people now those are trained on AutoCAD, the software, and they can use the software. So I see these are the major areas, major sectors, about 13, 14 sectors, which include the industry as well as the service sector. They are in great demand nowadays.
How do the training institutes prepare to cater to the needs of the employable skills in the youth, for the youth in this country now, with this changing shift in the employment nature and the work structure altogether?
If you see earlier there used to be a simple system. The ITIs were there, the polytechnics and the engineering colleges. Now, if I recollect, somewhere from 2008 onwards, when the NSDC came into the existence, then the lot of other training institutions came into picture. They were offering short-term training program, not the long-term. Like in CRISP, we started the short-term training program since 1997. Because CRISP is a part of the Indo-German Technical Cooperation Development Cooperation Organization. And during that time, the Germans, of course, you know very well, I think audience also knows it very well, the Germany is one of the most advanced vocational training country in the world. So when they started, they said all our courses have to be hands-on practice, because our colleges are giving only the theory. They are not providing any hands-on training. So we started with the hands-on training. And now, if you recall, from 2008 onward, most of the training institutions which came into existence with the support of NSDC, all of them started the hands-on training. So now the training is no more pure theoretical training. I would say it's a combination of 30, 35%, 40% in some cases are the theory component, and rest is the practical component.
So post this pandemic, Mr. Mukesh, do you see what kind of changes do you see in how institutes operate? Because most of the vocational skills or most of the skills that you mentioned is very hands-on. So what changes do you see that the training institute should adopt in cultivating those skills?
Right. No, of course, there is a big change. Very big change. When we started, I'm talking about somewhere in 97, 98, when we started, we were talking about the competency-based training program. So what is competency-based training program? It has got three components in it. One is the knowledge, other one is the skill, and the third one is the attitude. Because when I had been to Europe and I have seen the institution in Germany and other places, during the assessment I saw the assessor is assessing the trainee on all these three aspects. They also see when they are performing the practical, are they following the perfect procedure or not? And once the work is done, whether they have cleaned the machine or not, they have put the tools at the right places or not, so they used to check everything. So in competence-based training, all the three components are essential components. Now the biggest problem after this pandemic situation, how to measure all the three components, how to check all the three components. Because most of the trainings for almost a year, I would say, out of the within 24 months, I would say almost for 12 months, there was hardly any in-house training. Most of the training activities were online. Now, online training is very good as far as the IT-based courses are concerned. Because there, if the trainee has got the licensed software with it, with him or her, the trainer can teach them online without any problem. But the courses which require the hardcore activities, like if it is a plumbing course, if it is electrician course, if it is CNC machining courses, all these courses require bakery, beautician, all these courses cannot be taught fully on the online model. So there has to be some sort of system, some sort of blending, which is very much required in such cases. Like in CRIS, what we started, we converted all our training programs into the online format. And then the theory component was given online to the candidates. And they could book this slot because the numbers were also very limited. We could not call all 20 or 30 persons in a batch because the number has to be restricted. So the slots were available, and during those slots, the students can come to our place and can work on the machine itself under the guidance of a trainer. So post-pandemic, things have already changed. Now, if you see, a lot of the people are more comfortable learning online. They don't want to come to the colleges. They don't want to come to the schools, the training centers. But again, the problem is the same. If they have to understand the entire thing, the knowledge, skill, and attitude, they have to come to the training center. So blended learning can be one of the solutions for that. Though personally, I feel the complete physical learning is the best way. But looking to the situation, even this the physical model, which we are calling nowadays, physical plus digital model, or the blended learning, this could be the best way for learning now.
So how do you see the government contributions evolving when it comes to skill development? They are doing quite some efforts being put in place in this space, but how do you see it evolving?
Like if you see, everywhere the resources are limited and you cannot replicate the same things within the same place. Like even if I consider Bhopal, there are the major training centers, there are 5 to 6 major training centers. Some of them are fully supported by the government, some of them are in the private sector, and some the autonomous institutions like CRIS. Now, what happens in our system, most of the people try to offer the same courses which they see what the others are doing successfully. And personally, I have the feeling, I have the opinion that instead of replicating the same system, replicating the same training program, if the training sectors can be identified by different institutions within the same place, and then their trainers can utilize the facilities as a common pool. So for that, they can be a networking partner. Like we have done partnership with an industry some time back. We realized when we are training the students, so after 3 months of training, when we send them for the jobs, वो वहाँ रुकते ही नहीं है स्टूडेंट्स। उसमें से हार्डली 50% स्टूडेंट्स जो हैं वहाँ रुकते हैं, बैलेंस 50% दे जस्ट कम बैक टू देयर ओन प्लेस. Then we realize what is the problem. So earlier we were thinking, if we take students from one place, if they are in the same group, they will try to stay at that place, wherever they are going for the job. But then we realize it is good, they may stay, but if one of them leave, then others also leave. So we found another way, the unique way of working. We partner with some of the industries. So the part of the training program was done in CRISP, and part of the training program was a kind of on-job training, where our trainers were there within the industry also, and slowly we were extending the time in the shop floor. क्योंकि बहुत सारे जब स्टूडेंट्स से हमने बात की तो हमको ये समझ में आया, those students are not habitual working on the shop floor for 8 hours. तो जब शॉप फ्लोर पर 8 घंटे जब उनको खड़ा होना पड़ता था तो उनको लगता था दिस इज अ वेरी बोरिंग काइंड ऑफ जॉब, और वो छोड़ के चले जाते थे. तो बेस्ट वे, यू स्टार्ट दिस काइंड ऑफ ऑन जॉब ट्रेनिंग विद इन द इंडस्ट्री. मे बी इनिशियली दे वर्क इन द शॉप फ्लोर फॉर 3 hours. Then slowly, gradually we increase and come up to the level of 8 hours. And when they work for 8 hours within an industry environment, then they know this is the kind of industry and how they have to work in an industry. So I think this kind of collaboration is really very useful for the training purpose.
So on partnerships and collaborations only, Mr. Mukesh, while we stay on the topic, many institutes are now doing a lot of efforts is being put, in terms of bringing industry collaboration into the courses that they are working. What more can institutes do to enhance the academic and industry partnership and collaborations?
Right now, what is happening, the industry partnership is mostly limited to one particular locality and area. And if this can be further expanded, because if I train in Bhopal, the jobs may not be 100% available in Bhopal or within Madhya Pradesh. So most of the time the students have to go out. The trainees, those are passing out, they have to go to the other states, which are more industrialized states. So if we can tie up with those industry in those places also, then a lot of people can be trained. So again, this can be a blended model, different blended learning kind of model, where the essential theory component part and some of the basic practical part, the skill set, can be provided at the institution itself, and rest of the things can be on-job training. Like if you see in Germany, they offer the courses which are a kind of sandwich programs.
Yeah.
So when a student comes, for few weeks they study in their Chamber of Commerce, because mostly the Chamber of Commerce are running the training institution. So they study in Chamber of Commerce for few weeks first time. Then they go to the industry. Now what is happening in Germany? After the first introduction within the industry selects some of them. So after that, they are very sure the job is there, already there. Now their training is mostly as per the particular industry requirement. So maybe if the institutions can partner with the industries, not within their own locality, outside also, then this model can be very useful. So institutions are also getting benefit because they will get more participants even outside their area or locality, and the industry will also be benefited because the institutions, they are good in management, they know how to train the people. So that part can be taken care by the institutions.
Another question that I have is, there is scope definitely for vocational to grow in India, but what can institutes do to tap into the international vocational job market? What options are available for institutes and their students to tap into that?
We read almost every day. India is the only country which has the youngest population. The countries like Europe, the countries in Europe, US, Middle East, all these are aging population. So all of them need people. Because मैं first time एक बार सिंगापुर जब गया, then I realized, and personally I have seen worked with the Koreans also. So I realized that was somewhere in 1989 or 1990. Those Koreans, they were working in industry and I was working in that industry. They used to work from morning 8 o'clock up to 10 o'clock. No Saturday, no Sunday. And for 6 months, they worked like this. They were installing the machines. When we asked the question to them, why don't you take leave? You don't want to see Bhopal, you don't want to see the places. They said, no, we have just one thing in our mind. We have to succeed and we have to supersede Japan. That is a kind of thing. Similarly, in Singapore, I have seen initial days, people were like this. What happens after 2 or 3 or 4 generations when things are good enough? People becomes easygoing. That is the reason why if you see in the entire Europe, the US and other places, people are more interested in the jobs which are requiring less, I would say, less skill set or हाथ से काम कम करना पड़े, ऐसे jobs ज़्यादा देख रहे हैं. Now, problem is same. House will not change. House will remain same. Industry will not change. It will remain same. So you need all these people. The people we need in India, the similar people are required in rest of the places also. The only thing, their standards are different. Our standards are different. Still in our standards, though we have framed the curriculum, the framework is there, everything is there, assessment criteria is there. But still if you see, most of the time, not all the institutions, but majority of the institutions, they don't take it so seriously. When I'm talking about all 3 components of the competency, particularly the last component, the attitude component, they don't care much. Similarly, during the skilling work, वहाँ जब हम foreign में देखते हैं, they are very meticulous about the things, about the process. So first, they spend a lot of time on learning the things, learning the diagram, learning the map, whatever it is, they are working. First, they learn. In our case, what happens? I don't know. I think that's from the generations we are doing. We just start working without thinking, without learning, and during the process we learn. So this habit has to be changed if we want to succeed in the international market. And similarly, our training institution will also have to change their way of training. They have to go through all the processes, all the specification systems which are required by these countries. So again, I'm saying all those 14 sectors which we discussed in the beginning, or 15 sectors you discussed in the beginning, all the sectors require manpower, skilled manpower. In the world skill competition, you see about 42 job roles are there. So it means these 42 job roles are required throughout the world. Only last few years, last 1 or 2 skill competition, world skill competition, we have seen our people winning. They are coming out as a winner. When I went first time to the skill competition, you couldn't see any Indian working there that could win anything. But now I think things are changing, and we have to just change our attitude towards it.
On the same lines, when it talks about the international vocational space, you in many of your responses, you mentioned the German chambers of commerce and trade. So vocational stream in those countries are one of the preferred streams for the students. It is popularized also. In our country, what is the government doing, and how can institutes contribute in popularizing vocational education?
देखिए, biggest difference तो हमारे और particularly European या US countries के बीच में जो है, that difference is the respect for the hands-on work, which we don't have. Now we have got the similar machines, similar systems even at our houses. But the person who is coming to do the servicing, Do we have that kind of respect for that person? No. Even today, the person those are working, because it's a very simple, white collar jobs. So the student also prefer the white collar jobs. They would prefer to become data entry operator rather than becoming the good plumber or a good electrician or a good CNC machine operator. You know, now a CNC machine operator are big demand in any country. And a CNC machine operator gets almost 40 to 50,000 rupees a month. That kind of salary after 4 or 5 years of experience. What a data entry operator gets even after 5 years. But still they would prefer the job of data entry operator, because I think long back वो हमारे दिमाग में जो वर्ण सिस्टम जो बैठा गया दिया था ना, ब्राह्मण क्षत्रिय वैश्य शूद्र वाला, तो हमको ये लगता है कि जो टेबल पर बैठ के करने वाले काम है वो सब ब्राह्मणों वाले काम है, एंड रेस्ट ऑफ द वर्क जो है वो हमारा नीचे के लेवल का काम है, उसकी कोई वैल्यू नहीं है. तो द फर्स्ट थिंग आई थिंक जो गवर्नमेंट को करना चाहिए, जो होना चाहिए, और सोसाइटी ही करेगी, गवर्नमेंट अकेले नहीं कर सकती इसको, इट हैज टू बी डन बाय द सोसाइटी. वी शुड रेस्पेक्ट द पीपल दोज आर वर्किंग बाय हैंड्स. इफ यू सी इन यूके, a person who is doing the masonry work, brick work, when first time I saw in UK, I realized that person, I'm talking about somewhere about 2005 2006, a masoner who is working in UK used to get about 45,000 pounds in a year, whereas a professor used to get about 32,000 pounds in a year. For me it was surprising when I asked them why it is so. In our country it is entirely different, it's just reverse. They said because the person is working outside, working in cold, working in summer, working in rains, so it's a hard job, and hard jobs have to be paid very nicely, otherwise nobody will come for such kind of job. So this attitude we need to change, not only government but the society also.
So how do you see the role of institutes coming in play in popularizing vocational education?
Sometime back when this Commonwealth Games took place in India, that time I was working with GTZ. So we suggested the government, the people those are working in preparing the stadium. So a lot of different kind of manpower you need. Masons were there, brick laying persons were there, turf laying persons were there. तो हमने उस वक्त ये कहा था, मतलब this was recommended from the German side, once these stadiums are ready, this should be showcased to the entire country with the people those have prepared this. This will bring lot of value to these persons working at that level. Somehow it didn't work, but that is again one way. If a good work is done and you recognize that good work and you show that person as a kind of what we show कि भाई हमारा ये icon है. So like an icon, if we present those group, those people with that kind of good work, I think society should accept this thing. So, but the institution have to play the bigger role here. They have to come out with this idea. They have to popularize this thing. They have to publicize all these things so that people can understand.
I'm just taking some questions that has come on the question chat window here. What are the government agencies that are providing skill development programs in our country?
The major agency which we see is the National Skill Development Corporation, because they are facilitating the entire skill systems within the country. Then within the state, there are different states are having different. Some of them are having the skill missions. Some of them, like in Madhya Pradesh, you have Madhya Pradesh State Skill Development and Employment Generation Board. So these are the agencies. I think every state has got a skill development mission with either the name of a skill development mission or the Rozgar Board or the Employment Board, something like this. So all these agencies are involved in providing the skill development related activity and coordinating and facilitating those things. Now, as a training partner, we see there are the government institutions. So ITI, of course, is the biggest part of that. Then there are the non-ITIs which are mostly the under the PMKVY scheme के अंदर जो training centers बनाए गए हैं, those centers are also available in the market. Private sector में जो universities हैं, they have also come up with now the skill training facilities, because under this national education policy, new education policy, the educational institutions are also supposed to provide the skills, and this can be an kind of thing, multiple entry and multiple exit system. So a person who is coming, getting some credit, after certain credit, the person gets a certificate. Person can go back, work in the industry or work anywhere, wherever that person wants, come back to the institution again, take few more credit, then it could be a diploma or something like this. So nowadays, if we see, there are many players also. The government, private sector, the educational institution, the universities, all of them have now become the players in this sector.
Another question in the same line is, how can private institutions take advantages of these government skill development programs, basically government initiatives to take these programs to the remote and rural areas?
Like if you see, most of the states are having their own requirement of training the people. Like in Madhya Pradesh itself, if we see our chief minister has announced 1 lakh jobs every month have to be provided, means 12 lakh jobs in a year. 12 lakh jobs to be provided means 12 lakh people need to be trained. If not 12 lakh people need to be trained, maybe we can say about 30-40% people, their qualification, their skill needs to be recognized. The rest of the people, of course, have to be trained. No government, I would say no government, not even in India, anywhere else, can cover up the entire thing. It has to be done through the private partnership. So the private institution now has got a very big role to play in this sector. The only thing, they don't have to only think in terms of the profit margins. They have to take it as a mission to produce the good skilled manpower for the country as well as for the abroad. Once they are ready with this mindset, I don't think there will be any problem, because government is looking for such good training institutions, private institutions. Those can come and join hands with the government and work with them.
Thank you for that answer. So any career counseling options available that institutes and students can leverage for selecting the right vocational skills to pursue?
I think most of the institutions, the good institutions, are having the career counselor with them, full-time career counselor with them. Like in CRIS, we have the career counselor. Because when the student is coming, the student is confused. That trainee is confused. Which job is good for that person? So again, the counselor plays a very big role in this, because counselor understands what is the interest of that person, and also understand their family background, their financial background, and according to that, the counselor has to suggest to that person. Otherwise, what happens? People come, they enter into a trade, which later on, after some time, they realize it is not of their interest. तो काउंसलर का तो बहुत बड़ा रोल है इसके अंदर, and I would say counselor is a must in any of the training institutions like this.
One question that has come here, if I understood the question correctly, in most of the shop floor kind of skills and competencies, BVOC stream is kind of accepted. But when it comes to a little different skill set, a different job role, like what we are talking about is your IoTs and sensors, basically your 4.0 manufacturing skills that is there. The private organizations are still asking for the traditional streams of students. What are your views? Do you see it changing in any aspect to take in a BVOC stream students, or do you see BVOC playing, or a vocational segment playing a role in that those job roles as well?
Yes, of course. Because if you see BWOC का हमारे यहाँ पर अभी उतना ज़्यादा डिमांड नहीं हो पा रहा है. Though we started this program long back. I think the first time the IGNOU started this program BWOC because we were working with IGNOU in developing the curriculum and content for this program. But if you see outside India, there is a big demand for the vocational education teachers. And there they need this kind of certification. Without this certification, a person cannot become a vocational trainer there. Similarly, I think with time in India also, it will change. So the courses like, because if you see in the education sector, the B.Ed is compulsory, even for the school teachers or for the college teachers. So it should also be made compulsory for the trainer, those are coming in the vocational training setup. Now what is happening right now, the sector skill councils are training the people. They're training the trainers. They are also training the assessors. They are providing some sort of certification. But I think if a common module can be defined, so the first one part is the common for every trainer. Like in our institution, long back when we started in 97, 98, all our trainers were trained on pedagogy. Our trainers came from the industrial background. None of our trainers came with the academic background. They all came from the industry background. So they were knowing how to do the job, but they were not knowing how to teach. So all the people were trained on the training methodology, pedagogy, lesson planning. These are the various things. So I think this is one component which should be common to all. And then rest of the things are according to their own area, the trade or the field in which they are working.
Another question that has come here, I think, since you spoke a lot about German in your references here. In German, I think right after fourth grade, in schooling itself, vocational stream is another option that is given to students. Integrating vocational education in schools in India, what is the scope that you see? And how do you see it being popularized in T3, T4, or maybe even in the T1 cities?
I think this is the best way. Again, I take my personal experience. I studied from a school which is called a demonstration multi-purpose higher secondary school, which is in Bhopal. It's a kind of regional school. When I studied there 6th, 7th, 8th, during that time 6th, 7th, 8th, I learned welding, I learned carpentry. And when I went to college, and even today, I am very confident if you give me a welding machine, I can still do a good welding. I can still do a good carpentry work. Because these are the things which you learn from the very early stage. And whatever you practice at that age, you can never forget. So if the vocational trades are introduced in the school, I would say from 6th, 7th onwards, it should be introduced. If they are introduced, then it will bring a big change in the entire country.
So if a school has to start, is there any specific trade points that you feel that they should start with? Because most of the time the school, there is always vocational skills is very infra heavy in terms of vocational training. So how can schools then participate? What type of vocational skills should we think of integrating at the school level?
I think schools have already started doing it. At least in government schools, it has already started. But majority which I am seeing, most of the vocational training is still again in the field of IT and IT related. So it should be spread out and it should be diversified only from IT to the other sectors also. So like even in schools, I think you would also agree with me. Then in schools, we learn so many things. Bakery is one thing which learn in the school. Some sort of cooking is also taught in the schools. Earlier it used to be. And a lot of people learned all these things from the school itself. So these are some of the areas which should be introduced in the schools other than IT. Otherwise, what will happen? most of the people, again, they will just come out as a IT trainees, not in any other area.
And a question related to the discussion that we had on digital model. How practice digital model that we discussed, and how should institutes go ahead without compromising on the end quality, that output that the industry requires? So what are some action checkpoints that they need to put in place, and do you see any tips or guidance on how to enable this? Any tips for the institutes?
Model, if it is implemented properly, this can be one of the best models actually. Because if we train someone at our institute, suppose we take a batch of 30 students and they are here for 3 months, 7 hours a day. So we can train only 30 students in particular trade within 3 months. Like in a year, maximum we can train 90 to 100 students, not beyond that. But if we go for this physical plus digital model, this online model, what we can do, we can train, many people can attend the theory part immediately. And most of the cases, like in 3 months case, say 60% or 70% is the practical part. So roughly 2 months is basically practical part, or in terms of hours we calculate, it is about 150 hours becomes the practical part, or 100 hours becomes the practical part. So this 100 hours can be provided in slots to these students. So in that way, we can accommodate more people within those 3 months time itself. Now, the biggest requirement for this, there has to be a good learning platform first. Without platform, you cannot give all these kind of training. What happens most of the time when people think online training program means one person is giving lecture and the students are listening to that. No. E-learning model is entirely different. It has to be e-learning model which includes all those components. Some lectures will be there, some demonstration will be there, some animation could be there, some questions can be asked to the students so that they are continuously engaged during that session. Otherwise, what happens? Now the colleges are offering online training program. The online courses are going on. I see the students, they just participate, they just enter into that, और उसके बाद वो अपना दूसरा काम करने लग जाते हैं. So nobody is putting any attention. So this one thing is the platform which is required, which can serve large number of people, bandwidth और बाकी चीज़ों की प्रॉब्लम ना हो उसके अंदर. And second जो है उसके अंदर most important जो content है, content has to be designed in such a way that it keeps student always attentive during that period. Only then it will work. If we think कि एक लेक्चर दे देंगे, एक आदमी बैठ जाएगा और एक लेक्चर दे देगा, बेस्ट ट्रेनर भी जो लेक्चर देगा, देखिए हमारा पेडागॉजी जो है वो ये कहता है बेस्ट ट्रेनर भी यदि होगा, बेस्ट टीचर भी आपको 20 मिनट से ज़्यादा जो है वो बांध नहीं सकता इफ जस्ट लेक्चरिंग. सो आई नीड टू चेंज माई स्टाइल. समटाइम आई हैव टू राइट समथिंग, सो आई हैव टू demonstrate something, I need to show something, I need to ask questions so that every time these students are engaged into that. So these are two essential things which we need to work on.
So before we conclude, we are nearly approaching closing time, Mr. Mukesh. Before we conclude, do you have any closing thoughts on the topic that you want to share with all the participants?
Very simple. Skill, of course, is one of the area where every country, including India, we need a lot of skilled manpower. We also need to respect the people those are working with their own hands. We need to give them respect. We also need to understand that the training institutions cannot provide everything. The government cannot provide everything. So society has also have to come forward for the recognition of these people. And a good, if we are talking about the digital model, now it is going to be, I think, common. This cannot be changed further. So we need good platform, maybe some organization like TCS Ion, which is already doing it, a good platform for this, and a good e-learning content that is very much required. If we can offer, if we can combine all these things, probably our people, our youth can find job everywhere in the world, and we can really rule the world that way. That's what I feel.
Thank you, Mr. Mukesh, for engaging with us and sharing your views on the various areas in the vocational space. A very big thank you to all the participants who attended this webinar. We are providing a survey link at the end of this event, so please do share your feedback so that we know areas that we can improve on. Before I close, again, a very big thank you to you, Mr. Mukesh, for taking valuable time and speaking to us on this subject. Have a great evening.
My pleasure. Thanks to everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.